Welcome everyone to the Symbility self-paced training modules. We've designed our training modules with you, the user, in mind to take control over your learning experience. You can pause the video at any time to give yourself some hands-on practice. In this module, you're going to learn the final steps of working a claim within Symbility. Let's get started. One of the first things we talked about in our first module, where we were getting started to work in mobile claims, we talked about the Claim Explorer. The Claim Explorer is important to keep your eye on because it helps guide you through working this claim, and it helps orient you within the claim file. Now, we spent most of our time in the other modules within the Claim Explorer focusing on diagramming and estimating, but there are a few other things I'd like to point out to you here. So one is photos, and under photos, you may have a photo sheet already added. If you don't, that's okay. You can always right-click on Photos and go to Add, and you'll add a photo sheet. So once you have a photo sheet in here, notice my photo sheet says 0. I have 0 photos added to my photo sheet. So I see this big empty white paper here, and notice my ribbon across the top is showing me all the tools now that are related to working with photos. So the first thing I want to do is add some pictures here. So I can go to Add, and it's going to default to the last place you had added photos to. So it depends wherever you have your pictures stored on your computer. You can always click right here on this little drop down, and you can choose what folder wherever you have your pictures stored, whether they're on your desktop or in your My Pictures folder, etc. So you'll come in and you can start selecting your photos. Now, if you wanted to select multiple pictures, you'd click on the first one, hold down Control on your keyboard, and you can go about selecting other photos. So you go ahead and select your pictures. When you're all set, hit Enter on your keyboard, and that's going to add the pictures there. Now, the order in which they're added depends on the order in which you selected them, but you can always go ahead and reorder things. So for example, I could take a picture, click on it, hold my click down, and as I drag my mouse, it comes with me. So you can see if I keep going, it's going to add it to this other photo sheet. And wherever you see that orange bar, if you let go, that's where the picture is inserted. Now, notice up here in the ribbon, okay, my ribbon's changed a little bit. When we started, we were in the Home tab, and I see things like Add. This is where I added my pictures. Right here you can choose how many pictures are displayed on one page, and if you want pages displayed side by side, those kinds of things. You can have 3 pictures displayed on one page, up to 6. Personally, I like 2 because it's still big enough that I can see the photo, but still adding multiple pictures to one page. So again, these are kind of all up to you, whatever your personal preference is, but there are ways to kind of customize the view of your photos. Now notice when I click on a picture, you're going to see that there's an active Edit tab up here. If you click back in the white space, it takes you back home. So now that there's an Edit tab, there are a few things we could do. We see Edit Caption, Rotate 90 degrees, Delete, Full Screen, and Photo Editor. Edit Caption, there are a few different ways you could do it. If I click on this button right here, it's going to open up a box where I can add a caption. You could also click in this little area right here, and that's going to take you to the caption box. Now, what if you wanted to add the same caption to multiple photos? A few different ways you could go about it. If you go ahead and click here, let's say I wanted to add a caption called Water Damage. If I click Next, it's going to take me to the next photo, and I could type that in the same caption as well. But let me cancel this and show you guys that I can actually add the same caption to multiple pictures in one fell swoop. So if I just hold down Control and select all the pictures that I want the same caption to be applied to, select your photos, edit your caption, click on OK, and now you'll see that same caption's been added to multiple pictures. Another thing to notice when you're adding your captions is that there's a link to your quick list. So the quick list, again, is kind of a library of commonly used phrases that can be a time saver. So rather than having to type water damage every single time you want to include that caption, the quick list means it would be stored here and you would just go insert it. So let me show you real quick. If I edit my quick list and I add a new entry and I call it water damage, now I would just select water damage from here without having to type it. Okay. So that's adding a caption. Rotate 90 degrees would do just that. delete it, etc. Pretty self-explanatory tools there. But let's go ahead and look at full screen. So I could click up here and it would take me to full screen, or you choose a picture and double click on it and it's going to open nice and big. Now that I'm looking at it in full screen, there are some tools up here that would allow me to kind of edit this photo. So you see like a pen and a highlighter. Personally, I like the Insert tab. And in Insert, we see things like text, call out, line, arrow, rectangle, ellipse. My favorite's the call out because it's all those other ones combined into one. It is a box, it is a text box, it's a call out, it's a line, it's an arrow, it's all those things in one. So I'll choose the call out, I'll click on the photo, and I'm going to say, again, this is water damage. It's just a nice way to draw attention to a particular kind of damage. Now, if that text is coming in real small, you can select it, and now that the text is selected, notice there's a tab up here for format. That wasn't there a few minutes ago. It's only once you add text that the format tab exists. And here I could go in and I could change the font size. So maybe I want to make it something nice and big. If you need to change the size of the box, you'll see these little white squares along the side. You could go ahead and make the call out larger or smaller. Now the arrow, if you need to change where the arrow is pointing to, see that little circle on the tip of the arrow? If I hold my click down on it, I can choose to point this to a different direction. I could even go back to Insert and add another arrow and have this point in multiple directions. So again, it's just a nice way to add some detail and draw attention to the area of damage. Now, what if I wanted to get back to where I saw all the photos kind of side by side? If I come back to my Claim Explorer and I click on my photo sheet, now I'll see my, my call out added. Now, callouts are something we call annotations. What that means is the original quality of your photo is actually being retained. So this callout I have is not going to affect the original photo. It's kind of like a little layer that's being displayed on top of it. So notice annotations up here. This button is currently turned on. It's a toggle feature, so that means one click turns it on, a second click turns it off. So watch this area right here when I turn annotations off. So again, you can choose to have your annotations displayed or turned off. So turned on or turned off. Now another thing to think about with photos, you know, I added these pictures. What if there's another picture I need to add, or I had to go back to the site and take more photos and I need to add some more? Well, you can always go ahead and add more photos. It's really the same process that I went through to get my initial pictures in here. So I could always go back here and click on add and add some more photos if I wanted. Another thing to think about, you know, you can have multiple photo sheets in here, and you can also rename them. So you could have interior photos. And then maybe you want to add another photo sheet for your roof photos. The more you name things, just the more organization you're going to add to your claim and make it easier to find things. So just consider those elements in here while you're adding photos, but keep in mind there's really no limit to how many photos you can add. It's a very easy process to go through here in Symbility, so go ahead and add those photos if you need them. The next section in the Claim Explorer is forms. Now again, forms kind of get into workflow, so it might depend on your company and who you're writing claims for and what the expectations are. But if you need to add some forms, they'll be here. If I right click on forms, I see add. Now the forms you're seeing in here, this is just a list of kind of the default forms that are available to all Symbility users. Depending on the company you're writing a claim for, you might see some customized forms. But for now, let me just show you what a form could look like. So I'll go into Notice of Loss, for example. Anything you see in here in a yellow field is editable. I could click on that box and I could go ahead and type in some information. Now keep in mind, the forms are going to pre-populate as much information as it can. It's going to look at the loss summary, it's going to look at your estimate, and it's going to pull in as much information as it can find there to pre-populate some fields. So notice the insured is pulled in here, the property, everything is pulled in from my loss summary. But again, if you need to add something, you could go ahead and just click on that field and add it. Some forms might be signable. You might see an area at the bottom asking for a signature. Obviously, if you're using something like an iPad, that will be a lot easier to sign with your finger, for example. But you could sign it on a computer. It just might be a little bit messy. When you sign a form, it will automatically lock it, so all of the editable fields will kind of go away, that you won't be able to change them anymore. You can delete a signature, and that will bring back the editable fields. But you'll have to start that process all over again with that form. So just keep in mind that when you sign a form here, it locks it. So that's forms. Underneath forms is documents. So if there are any other additional documents that you want to have attached as part of this claim file, you can add them in documents. So if I go ahead and right click and go to add document, it's going to default to the last place you had imported a document from. You could always navigate to a different place if you have things in a different part of your computer. You just tell it where you have this document stored. There is a limit to how large of a file you can attach here. The default is 1 megabyte, depending on the company. That can be changed, so just keep in mind it depends on who you're writing claims for, but generally there is a file size limit. That's not to say you could add 10 documents each at 1 megabyte, but just keep in mind there's that individual file size limit. One thing to keep in mind in terms of documents and photos, okay? Don't delete the originals from your computer until you've uploaded the claim. So just kind of keep that in mind. Don't delete that original document from your computer until you've uploaded that claim out to Claims Connect. The next section in our Claim Explorer is the journal, okay? The journal is actually a really nice feature. The journal acts as a kind of detailed history of the claim, okay? So anytime a status changes or anything like that, it automatically gets logged here in the journal. Something we talked about briefly in our very first module. For example, I talked about assignment statuses, and we see that here as part of the Claim Explorer. Assignment statuses, these were things like insured contacted, inspection scheduled, inspection performed, etc. Again, these have to do with workflow, so it depends on your company and what the expected workflow is. But an example of something like this being logged in the journal, you can notice here I had marked insured contacted, and you'll see that status logged right here in my journal. Okay, so again, it's really nice that the journal kind of acts as that detailed history of the claim. Now, if you watched our module about reviewing an estimate, I showed you how to add a note to a particular line item. But what if you wanted to add a note that's more related to the overall claim? Here in your journal, you can add a manual journal entry, and that is kind of a note that's related to the overall claim. So if you notice up here in the top left-hand corner, there's a button that says Add Manual Journal Entry. There's also a little link down here in the bottom. So I like this link. I click on it, this window will pop open, and I could go ahead and enter my manual journal entry. Now, again, notice because that this is an area where I can add text, there's the quick list. So if there was certain kind of journal entries you're always adding, rather than having to type it every single time, you could add that to your quick list, and then you would just insert it from here, so it's a time saver, so you're not typing everything every single time. You could choose to notify a particular participant or notify somebody by an email address, so you can keep all the appropriate parties kind of in the loop and informed as to what's going on with this claim. So that's our journal within our Claim Explorer. So we've worked our way through our Claim Explorer. We've talked about kind of all these important pieces of the claim file. There are a few other things that we'd like to cover as we kind of finalize our steps of working a claim within Symbility Mobile Claims. So one thing to talk about is the estimate status and releasing ownership, okay? So let me go back to an estimate. Circle back here. So if I click on structure at the bottom, I'm looking at my estimate. Now this will really have to do with workflow. So again, every company is a little different. If marking an estimate status is important to your workflow, you'll need to come to your estimate page, and you could do it from your estimate, recap, summary, or totals. You'll see in progress up here. You'll need to mark your estimate status, most likely ready for review, depending on your company. Maybe you use completed. Again, very dependent on workflow, but the estimate status is important. So you'd mark your estimate status, let's say ready for review. Then the very next step to finalize a claim, this is something everyone will have to do. You'll have to go to close in the top right-hand corner. And I want you guys to notice that I'm really stressing the word close. I'm not clicking on the X. They'll do two really different things actually. The word close will simply close this claim file and take me back to our claim list where we started. The X will close the entire program. So two very different things. We need to click on the word close, and it's going to prompt us to save our changes. We'll say yes, and it takes me back out to my claim list. Okay? Now I've got my training claim selected in here. And the very last step, one of the very last steps you'll ever need to do when you're working a claim is you'll have to release ownership. Now, if you watched our Getting Started module, Module 1 in this series, we talked about ownership, and I said ownership is the editing rights of a claim. It gives you the ability to go in and diagram and estimate. If you don't own a claim, you can see it kind of like a view-only file, but you can't make any changes to it, okay? And so the whole time we've been working in these modules, we've had ownership. Remember we talked about looking for this little hand, that's a visual indicator telling me that I own this claim. So the very last step is I'll have to release ownership. Just like acquiring ownership is important in the beginning, releasing ownership is important in the end. So really, at the end of every day, you should be releasing ownership of your claims. Now notice I have two claims in here that I have ownership of. I have a test claim and I have the training claim. If I wanted to release ownership of both claims at once, I would hold down Control, click on my test claim, and now they're both selected. When I come up here to release ownership, it's going to release ownership of multiple claims, of both claims. So think of it this way, you can pile actions on top of each other and it will be a time saver. So I'm ready to release ownership. And I want to click on release ownership just one single time, and notice that I'm stressing just one click because a lot of times this is an area where people will accidentally double click. What happens if I double click when I should be single clicking? We'll take a look at this. When I click on ownership, do you see that it triggers synchronize? Look what happens if I click on release ownership a second time. Do you see it turns it off? So if I double click when I should be single clicking, it's turning it on and off so fast that really what I think should be happening is not happening. So just remember there's a difference between a single click and a double click. It's important to be intentional in how you're using your mouse here. So I'm going to click one time on release ownership and it triggers synchronize. So whenever you see that red dot, that's the system telling you, hey, you should synchronize at this point. When I synchronize, it's actually going to be doing two things for me at once. It's going to be letting go of ownership, and it's also going to be sending all of the information, all the diagrams and estimating I just did in here, it's going to be sending it out to the cloud. It's going to be uploading it to Claims Connect, where things are backed up and stored. So it's a really important thing to do at the end of every day. We release ownership because it's safe for us. So go ahead and synchronize. And as it loads, let me talk about a few scenarios as to why it will be important for you to release ownership. Releasing ownership is important because it creates a safe, flexible environment. When I let go of ownership, I'm letting go of the editing rights of a claim. So sometimes people might get a little worried about that. And they'd say, why would I want to let go of the editing rights of a claim? I'm going to pick up with my work tomorrow. Well, here's why. What if your computer got stolen overnight, or your computer crashed overnight, or you got sick and a coworker was going to help you with some of your claims? If you retained ownership on your computer, your coworker wouldn't be able to go ahead and help you with those claims because only you can edit them from your computer. But if you release ownership, you're creating this flexibility across multiple devices. That means they could go to their computer, synchronize, and pull that claim information in, and in just a few minutes be working off of those claims. So the fact that you're releasing ownership is creating this flexibility across devices, okay? Tomorrow, if you want to start your day again, you go reacquire ownership and you pick up that way. So notice when I released ownership, now my test claim and my training claim no longer have that little hand icon underneath it. So I've let go of ownership. I've created that flexibility to work across multiple devices and it's safe because things are stored and backed up out in the cloud. Now, there are some other buttons up here that I want you to just be aware of what they do. Download and upload, okay? Download and upload. Download claim, this claim is already downloaded. I see it because I have that manila folder. What would upload a claim be? Well, let's say I just did a lot of work and I want to take a 5-minute break, and I'm going to come back and continue working on it, so I don't really want to let go of ownership in those 5 minutes. But I want to make sure that all the work I just did is backed up out to the cloud. Uploading a claim is a way to do that, so it's making sure that things are sent out to Claims Connect and things are stored and backed up. So when you release ownership, it does uploading for you automatically, but if you want to do it multiple times throughout the day, go ahead and do that upload claim. But again, at a bare minimum, your daily workflow should look like this. In the morning, you come in, you acquire ownership of the claims you'd like to work, and you synchronize. You go about your work. At the end of the day, you release ownership of everything and synchronize. So again, just stressing how important releasing ownership is. You should be doing that at the end of every day, and it creates that safe and flexible environment. Real quick, just to show you what it would look like if I accidentally open a claim that I don't own. Notice I don't own this claim. I don't have that little hand. I can open a claim. I can see it. I can see all my diagrams, but notice all of my tools are grayed out up here. If I tried to go add a window, for example, or door, everything's grayed out. If you get to a point like this and you think, man, I'm doing everything they told me to do, but everything's grayed out, that's a sign that you don't own this claim. So you'd come back out here, you'd see, oh, you know what, I forgot to acquire ownership, and you could go about it again. So again, ownership, it's a new concept to you guys here, but a really important one. We start our day by acquiring, we end our day by releasing, and that creates that safe, flexible environment. All right, we talked about when we synchronize, right? Synchronizing is kind of the communication between mobile claims on your computer and Claims Connect out in the cloud. And if you watched our Getting Started module, you saw when I synchronized, it pulled in a new claim assignment to me. So that's how you guys are going to get claim assignments, is when you synchronize. It pulls that information in. But most likely, you want to be notified when a claim's been assigned to you, so that you know that you should log into Symbility and you should go synchronize in mobile claims. So let's talk briefly about setting notifications. You can choose to be notified via email or text message that a claim's been assigned to you. So the way we would do that is by going up here to the Symbility icon, and I click on it, and the third option from the bottom down here says Claims Connect. Remember, there are two components to our system, Symbility Claims Connect and Symbility Mobile Claims. All of our modules have been focusing on mobile claims because that's where you do all your diagramming and estimating. Claims Connect, as we said, is kind of the administrative side of things. And Claims Connect is where you can go to set up your notifications. So when I click on Claims Connect, Internet Explorer is going to load, and I'll close that little window. And I'll find notifications under Preferences. So if I come up here to Preferences, and a side note, guys, don't worry if you don't see the same options up here. It depends on what kind of user you are. If you're a standard user versus an administrator, you might see some different things. But you will all see Preferences, and you'll see Notifications. So I'd click on Notifications. The window's going to load, and I see kind of two areas in here. I see Notification Methods and Notification Subscriptions. Notification methods is the method in which I choose to be notified of, or notified by. And then notification subscriptions are the occurrences, the occasions that I can choose to be notified of. Now, you wouldn't want to come in here and select everything because you'll get a lot of unnecessary notifications. You'll want to choose the things that are relevant to you, and it really will depend on your role within your company. So for example, if you're part of an estimate review team, you would want to know when an estimate has been marked ready for review or completed. If you're an adjuster or a contractor or an IA, you'd probably want to know when a claim has been assigned to you, right? So it really depends on your role within your company. Well, here's how you'll set up your notifications. Notice under notification methods, internal is in there. That's there by default. An internal notification means when you log into mobile claims, you'll get a little note popping open telling you a claim's been assigned to you. Well, most likely you want a notification outside of the system. You want to get an email or a text message telling you that, oh, you've gotten a claim assigned to you. So what I would recommend doing is coming over and setting up a new method. So you'd click on New Method. This window will pop open, and notice if I click on this drop down, I see email, text message, pager, or voice. You can choose to be notified by any of these methods. The most common method is email or text message. So you'd come in here, you'd enter your message destination, that's your email address. You could shoot yourself a little test to make sure that it's coming through correctly, and then you add it. Once you add it, you'll have a new column displayed in here. So it would say your email address, and then you can come in and you can choose your notification subscription. So for example, I could scroll down, and depending upon my role within my company, maybe I'd want to know when a claim has been assigned to me. Right here, claim has been assigned to you, so I'd come in and I'd select that. When I click save, I'm going to get those notifications. So this is really, guys, a one-time process. Once you have they're set. Of course, if you need to come in and change your notification subscriptions, or maybe you got a new phone number and you want to change your method, etc., you can do those things at any time. But generally, once you have this set up, you'll be good to go. And really, that's really all you need to do in Claims Connect. Again, it's the administrative side of things. You can do a lot in there, but unless you're the administrator, most of your time will be spent over here in mobile claims. One last thing I want to remind you guys of is our support site, okay? So, you've gone through these training modules, you've learned a lot. Really, Symbility is, the more you use it, the more comfortable you will become with it. But if at any point along the way you feel like you need a little help, there are resources for you. One little reminder, this little question mark up here, this accesses our online help. So it's a really great tool. You can search the index. Things are broken down into kind of bite-sized pieces for you. A really great tool to help you right here while you're working within the system. But if you want some more help, you can always access our support site. So if I click on the Symbility icon up here, the second to last option down here says Symbility Support. You'll click on it, a new window's going to load, and you'll have to first sign up. But once you're signed up, you'll have access to our full user guide. That's about 400 plus pages of very detailed documentation of everything we've just gone through and more. You'll have access to our support team by email, by phone number. So there are job aids, kind of individual documents about very specific topics for you guys. So there really are a lot of resources to help you along the way. You guys are great resources for each other, so ask each other questions, share experiences with each other, and I think you'll do great with it. So with that, I'll say good luck to you all. Thanks for joining us as we learn the final steps of working a claim in Symbility. Make sure you check out our other training modules to learn more about working in mobile claims. Remember, if you have any questions, reach out to our support team. Bye for now.